Thank you all so much for coming. It's great to see you here. Thank you for coming. I'm Kate Wofford. I'm Director of Alliance for the Shenandoah Valley, and we do many events throughout the year, and I think this is my favorite one. This is the time where we take a minute to really honor someone or a few people who have been quiet leaders in conservation and celebrate their accomplishments, celebrate this extraordinary region that we're working together to protect, and have a good time together. So thank you so much for coming on this beautiful afternoon. We've got a few thank yous, especially to the Ruritans of 10th Legion for making this space available. It's absolutely gorgeous view. I'm supposed to watch out for this microphone because we're streaming this. For those of you who might not be familiar with Alliance for the Shenandoah Valley, we are a nonprofit based here in 6 counties in the Shenandoah Valley, and we are working to sustain a future of working farm and forest land, clean streams and rivers, and thriving communities. Whether it's land use and transportation planning, connecting farmers with conservation programs, or supporting initiatives like the Shenandoah Rail Trail, the Alliance staff and board are out and about doing work for the future of this landscape. There are quite a few Alliance staff and board here, so I'm going to just point them out, and I hope I don't forget anybody, but please introduce yourself if you don't know these staff and board. Director of Conservation, Kevin Tate. In the back, Deputy Director, Kim Woodwell, Aaron Birch, Chris Anderson, Kim Sandum, Kim Sandum are the staff members, and we have quite a few board members here, several of whom are rotating off at the end of this year after being founding board members. So, right? That lovely boo was from our board chair, Carolyn Long. It's Sarah Francisco, one of our founders, is here from Augusta County. Lisa Hawkins, one of our founders, is here from Rockingham. Bob Threewitz is a board member from nearby that I think most of you probably know. Corey Williams was one of our founding board members. He's in the back, no longer on the board, but one of our founders. Bibb and Dolly Frazier served on the board, and they are here. Who am I missing? Oh, Christy Hartman was hiding behind Sarah from Warren County. So we have a great showing from the staff and board. These really are extraordinary conservation leaders who know their communities really well, are deeply committed to conservation. And I think the reason that this organization is having success is because we have such wonderful leadership in the board. This year at the Valley Treasure, we are really honored and excited to celebrate Dee Dee Sellers and Tim Murray as our 2025 Valley Treasure, recognizing their perseverance and commitment to protecting the Mauzy area for the future. We also are going to have a chance to honor the late Juanita Burtner as our 2025 North Star, whose stewardship and advocacy in Keezletown and Rockingham County continue to guide our work and inspire others to care for this place we call home. One thing that's neat about this year's program is that we're going to really have a chance to focus on Mauzy's rich history. This is a place where the stories of people and the landscape are deeply intertwined. And by highlighting this history, we aim to show how conservation is not only about protecting land and water, but also about honoring the generations who have lived, worked, and cared for these places. Our natural resources are storied, and the way humans have interacted with and stewarded them over time underscores why protection is essential. As we celebrate our honorees, we're reminded that lasting change happens through community, through people who care, who act, and who inspire others to do the same. Their leadership strengthens our shared resilience, and it helps ensure that the Shenandoah Valley's natural beauty and cultural heritage endure for generations to come. One of our staff members, Maya Alexander, has a wedding today, so she could not be here, but she prepared that setting the stage for today, and I think she did a beautiful job. With that, I would like to invite up our first guest speaker, Karen Stolz-Wetzel, who lived not too far from here and now lives in the New Market area. And she's going to share a little bit more about the history that makes this community so special. Karen.
Thank you. I'm not a trained historian, but I am a trained librarian, and I was a librarian for many years. And I'm a lifelong learner. I love doing research. Unfortunately, I tend to keep going on the research, and then my finished product is not always what I like. But we'll see how it goes. In February 2023, the Chimney Rock Chronicle, some of you may know that little newspaper out of Broadway, printed my article about the demolition of the inn at Mauzy on the front page. I write every month an article, but I've only had 2 front pages. That was one of them. I think that Maya Googled Mauzy and she got my article came up. And so she contacted me about giving a short talk on the history of Mauzy for this occasion. My column, they made me now have like a title for the column every time, and it's Reflections of the Past and Present. And so I will probably reflect some, and I may be wandering, rambling around doing some connections. First, let's talk about roads, the roads leading here. How many of you came on Route 11 to get here? Most of you probably did, and later on I'll talk about some other roads. Route 11 has a long history. It started out as an early buffalo trail. And I lived on the Massanutten Mountain east of Newmarket for many years, and it was Old Buffalo Lane. And before we had street names, there was a sign that said, "This is an old buffalo trail." It sort of was a buffalo trail when I lived there. It was not state maintained, it was dirt, so that's the reason I'm now in town in Newmarket. Next, Route 11 was a Native American path, and it continued. The old path did not, and the original Route 11 did not go like it does now up to Harrisonburg. It sort of veered off a little bit south of 10th Legion, and then it came up this way, and you probably saw Indian Trail Road as you passed. Then it went up that way. So that was originally toward Keezletown. Next, it was called the Great Wagon Road, and it was a stagecoach route. One reference called it the Long Gray Road. And between 1834 and 38, it became a turnpike called the Valley Turnpike. And it had toll gates about every 5 miles. There was one south of Mount Jackson at the bridge, one at the south end of Newmarket, about where Southern Kitchen stands now. I had lunch there today. So come on down to Newmarket and try it. Then there was one about a half mile north of 10th Legion. And then in 1918, the state took over the road and they removed the toll gates. And we still call it the Valley Pike from the word turnpike. And in 1932, Route 11 was rebuilt. It was moved a little to the southeast. And you'll see, I have an old picture of the inn where the Route 11 comes right in front of it. And, but they moved it a little bit there. And then you have the Cross Valley Road, Route 259 today, which came through Brock's Gap, through Broadway, and intersected at Mauzy with the Valley Pike. And at one time, it went sort of south of the inn, and there used to be a line of cedar trees there where you could see the old road. I drove up there today, but I think they took those down too when they did the taking down of things. When Interstate 81 was built in the early 1960s, it split the farm at Mauzy, but the road made a wide sweeping curve to avoid the historical buildings. That was back in the early 60s. Mauzy is located midway between 10th Legion and Lacey Spring in Rockingham County, Virginia, and a post office was established at Mauzy in 1880. And until 2023, a large old house, originally an inn tavern, stood there. And it was a place, they sometimes called it an ordinary, where there would be a boarding house and food would be served. And of course, you had to have stable arrangements for the horses because it was an old stagecoach route. I'm going to tell you the names of some of the owners of the land and operators of the store near Mauzy, because there was a general store on the other side of the road from the inn that some of you may remember. Jacob Woodley was the first settler who bought land in 1749, and he married a looker, and later that became Loker or Loki. William Pickering bought land in 1794, and he received land by patent on October 7th, 1796. Derek Pennybacker operated the store around 1840. Richard Dickey Pickering operated the inn, which was across the road from where the one that you may remember, that I remember, from 1845 to 1851. And prior to the Civil War, they used the site for musters and political rallies. And during the Civil War, it became an army enlistment place. In 1832, Richard Pickering submitted a petition to the General Assembly to establish the town of Sparta, which was signed by 100 citizens in the area. And it mentioned that there was a crossroad and readily available water in place, so they definitely could have a town with those things. And it was called Sparta for a while, but then there was a Sparta in Caroline County. And so if somebody sent a letter to Sparta here, unless they put Rockingham County, Virginia, the letter probably didn't go through. So in 1845, Pickering submitted another petition to the General Assembly to change the name of the town to Spartapolis, like the Greek things. In 1844, Pennybacker sold the store business to Jacob Mauzy and Madison Brown, and Mauzy started operating the store. In 1845, Joseph Mauzy bought 200 acres from Pickering for $6,621. And in 1847, he bought 3 additional tracts. In 1858, Colonel Emmanuel Sipe bought the store business. Besides running the store, he was a lieutenant colonel in the Virginia militia. And by 1862, he enlisted as a captain in the 12th Virginia Cavalry. And in 1865, Sipe was commander of the 7th Virginia, and he was captured and taken to Delaware as a prisoner of war. But after the war, he must have gotten home because he opened the store back at Mauzy, and he also had stores at Linville and in Pendleton County, West Virginia. In 1866, Jed Hopkins, who was Stonewall Jackson's map maker, identified the crossroads as Sparta. It had 10 buildings around the house. However, the Lakes Atlas of Rockingham County labels the crossroads as Mauzy Post Office and shows only 3 buildings along with JBD Roads Store and PO. In 1886, David Blakemore operated the store. He had only operated it 2 months when it burned to the ground on February 25th, 1886. And he did rebuild it on the opposite side of Route 11. In 1894, the store business was sold to J.K. Mauzy and Son. And in March 1919, Joseph Mauzy sold inventory to David Taylor, who was postmaster at Lacey Springs. Now, if you'd like to read my article about the shops at Mauzy, it was more on the demolition or but it also had a lot of history. Some of my cousin lived there at one time, and so I included that. And I talked a lot about the Crumpackers who owned it, and maybe some of you like me fondly remember going to the shops at Mauzy and their Christmas sale and all that. But anyway, that was what my article was about. And you can go to Chimney Rock Chronicle online, and they have a lot of back issues in electronic form. Now, when I learned I was going to do this talk, I consulted my good friend Dale McAllister, who many of you know. He's a retired teacher too, but he is a real historian. And he gave to me a 70-page unpublished manuscript that he had done for Sylvia Crumpacker. And he describes the inn in great detail. And he mentions how the Virginia Department of Historic Resources had also surveyed the inn. And I did an article about Dale for the Chimney Rock Chronicle. That was my second front page. Dale wrote the book on Lucy Sims, and that was what that was about. Also, my friend Dolores Reed gave me a lot of information from Marie Arrington's book, et cetera. And anyway, I had a lot of help doing the research, and I had done some research originally. The Mauzy family, and Dale made sure to tell me it's pronounced Mauzy because it's French. A French Huguenot preacher named Henry Mauzy fled France in 1685. He moved to England, then he came to America, first South Carolina, then Stafford County. And there's a Mauzy cemetery near Mauzy, and Mauzy slaves are thought to be buried on part of the farm behind the Darrer house up where you turn onto the Mauzy Athlon Road. Now I'm going to talk about a few more place names. The road from the Valley Pike, Route 11, to the Mountain Valley Road, which is Route 620, which runs across along the mountain. And where this road, the Mauzy Athlone Road, is located, that's where the post office was located, at the intersection of Route 11 and this road. And tradition said that Athlone was named by the Speck family who settled there. They moved to the area in the 1870s from Athlone, Ireland. And so that's where that name came from. Now, Mountain Valley is where I lived for about 10 years, not to be confused with Singer's Glen Mountain Valley, but Mountain Valley is the area between Martz Road, which is now 806, and Mountain Valley Road. And there was a post office there at that intersection named Oakwood, and I lived there for 10 years, and I had never heard of that, but I did find that out. My son rests at Mountain Valley Cemetery there at the Mountain Valley United Methodist Church, and he had spent his childhood there. He also did scouts here in this building. One year, he went to visit his grandparents in Hardy County, West Virginia, and a big ice storm came at Easter, and he was supposed to be back to help serve after Easter sunrise service, but he got stranded in West Virginia, and the electricity went off, so we didn't have the breakfast after all. Dale ends his manuscript with these words. Unfortunately, the inn at Mauzy, this fine and rare example of a historic inn and associated outbuildings along the Valley Pike, succumbed to issues more powerful than historic preservation. The property was sold with the understanding it would be preserved, and I think at one time it was going to be a tea room. I was quite excited about having a tea room. But then it was sold to developers who, as you know, raised the houses in structure to build a Dollar General store. And now not one trace remains of this once thriving community along Shenandoah Valley's main highway for pioneers journeying westward, seeking the promise of a better life beyond the original states that formed their nation. And those were Dale's words at the end of his article. Now, I wanted to, being a former librarian, I want to have some kind of audio visual. And since I didn't do a PowerPoint, I've made a map. Let's see if I can show. This is a rough draft and it's not to scale. But we're sort of about here. Here's Route 11. Here's 608, which is now the Mauzy Athlon Road. And you notice here's where Indian Trail Road goes. Then here's 620 that runs along the mountain. Here's where the Athlon post office was. Here's where the Oakwood post office was. This is the Lacey Springs post office, the only one still surviving, and it's not open very many hours anymore. And then here's where the Indian Trail goes on up to Keezletown. So to get here today, you probably had to come Route 11 or Route 620, or maybe you hiked from some other place. So that's my presentation. I don't know if anybody else has any comments or questions on it, or you have any memories of Mauzy, or you know some other things, or you know something I said that was incorrect, which my sister always does that for my Chimney Rock Chronicle articles, but it's always good if somebody knows new information to tell you. So thank you very much.
I should have said beforehand, Karen is a wonderful friend of us at the Alliance, and she stops in our office in Newmarket with newspaper clippings and encouragement about our work. And We were so delighted when you said yes to give a little bit of history. And you're right, Maya did Google Mauzy and your article came up and she called you immediately. So you'll be here after, you can't stay quite till 5, is that right? But you'll be here. So if you have corrections on the history, you can catch Karen afterwards and set the story straight. We are really honored that one of Mauzy's friends and neighbors is also a VIP. Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry for the Commonwealth of Virginia is Matt Lohr, of course. And I was so thrilled when he said that he would be available to come and say a few words. As long as I've been around, he has completely dedicated himself to public service, to making sure family farms can thrive and persist. Been a real champion of conservation through his public service and through his actions on his own family's farm. So it's a real honor that he's here and is going to share some remarks with us. Matt. Thanks.
Well, good afternoon. It is great to have a chance to be here. I was thinking on the way here, out of 4 years of traveling as secretary, this is the first time in 4 years that I could actually look out the window and see my farm at an event. So I appreciate that, Kate. Thanks for the invitation and for all the good work that you and the Alliance do. And Karen, thank you for that presentation. I'm a lifelong resident of Mauzy and learned a lot from that. So really appreciate the history on that. So I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. And it's been just a wonderful, wonderful honor to serve the last 4 years as Secretary for Governor Youngkin. I can't believe we're down to like 68 days until January 17 when we'll be leaving. But in the last 4 years, I've been able to drive over 200,000 miles and visit 8 countries around the world. I visited every county in Virginia, many on multiple times. But I'm really, really proud to say that I'm from Mauzy and Rockingham County. And even though I'm in Richmond and traveling around all during the week, I try always to make it home at least for a day or two on the weekend to my farm just over the hill. And that's where I'm most at home. And so this is my community and our community. And so just want to really thank so many people who have just been so instrumental in preserving our community and making sure that we can just make sure that agriculture is still going to be key for this area. When we took office 4 years ago, the governor and I sat down and really looked at the agricultural industry, and he did not have an agriculture background, but he understands that agriculture is our largest industry and forestry is our 3rd largest, and together that's over $100 billion a year of economic impact, and almost 500,000 Virginians work in ag and forestry. And so we put together a plan that we could advance the industry, for it to grow, to look out for the next generation. What can we do to help support our farmers? And it's been a really interesting and fun ride. The Census of Ag that USDA does every 5 years, the last census showed that in Virginia in the last 5 years, we lost 10% of our farms in Virginia. It also showed that we lost 500,000 acres of farmland in Virginia. And the average age of our farmer in Virginia continues to increase to 59 and a half. Now, when I was a young farmer in my 20s, 59 seemed like a million years ago. Now that I'm in my 50s myself, it seems to get a lot closer. And so we've really worked hard to try to make sure we can see that industry grow and thrive and give opportunities for new beginning farmers and that next generation. And more importantly, conserve and preserve our farmland that we have and make sure that it can be available. I'm proud that on our farm, 250 acres, we put permanent conservation easements on it about 10 years ago. I've got 2 kids. I'm a 5th generation farmer. My son Carson, who's at JMU, wants to take over the farm at some point and be the 6th. And very happy that through the work of so many partners, we've been able to make sure that farm will remain a farm forever. And that's been really special to me. My grandfather, as a kid, I remember him talking about the importance of preserving the farm. Some of you may know my granddad Lester Lohr, my dad Gary Lohr. I think they're going to be here today. Really instilled in me just a passion for preserving and protecting our lands, and so it's been an honor to be able to see that. And the reason I'm so happy to be here is to help celebrate and recognize some folks that are being honored tonight. Dee Dee and Tim, where are you guys at? Somewhere right back in the back. I've known them forever, but I remember first getting to work with them, I guess like 25 years ago when there was a Liberty Holtzman station that was being proposed that some of you may remember. My late wife, Andrea, was adamantly opposed to this station, and her and Dee Dee kind of teamed up and were working hard, making trips to Richmond. And although it ultimately was approved, obviously, and it's been in operation for a long time, that being able to see the community come together whenever there's an issue that affects so many people, and to have somebody that spearheads it, like Dee Dee and Tim, being able to rise up and lead that charge. And especially within recent years of the proposed truck stop, Dee Dee was on the front lines, being able to gather people together and creating the Ag and Forestal District, which is so important to the area. We're proud to be a part of that. So I told Dee Dee and Tim that they're the reason, part of the reason that I really wanted to make sure that I could come today and just say thank you. Thanks for what you've done. It's been tireless efforts over the years, but we really appreciate it. Our community appreciates it, and we really thank you. And it's an honor to see you get recognized. And then Juanita Burtner, oh my gosh, she was such a valuable part of my life. So when I graduated from tech in the mid-90s, I came back to the farm, and one of the first things I did was join Farm Bureau, Rockingham County Farm Bureau. And I joined, became the leader of the County Young Farmer Committee, and Juanita was in charge of the Women's Committee. And I just absolutely adored my time with her. She was just the sweetest, sweetest lady. And she loved agriculture so much. And she taught me so much about advocacy and standing up and working with our legislators and elected officials, and the trips that we took to Richmond were just such great memories. But the thing I remember most about Juanita is that in addition to being such an advocate and a passionate, tireless advocate for agriculture, she was just so nice, and she was just so kind. And I never saw her family. I never saw her get angry. I'm sure she did at some point, but I never saw her get angry. I never saw her be disrespectful or disagreeable. Even if she ever disagreed, she did it in a way where it was just respectful and kindness. And so she was a dear, dear friend and a dear lady. And Chaz and Virginia and everybody, it's so great to be able to see you all here and your family, just to honor her, because she did a lot for agriculture, not only in Rockingham County, but in Virginia. So thank you all for supporting the Alliance. Kate, thanks for your great leadership, and thanks for working so hard to protect and preserve Mauzy, which is so important to so many people in the area. Thank you.
This is awesome already, and we haven't even gotten started with the awards. Thank you so much, Matt. It's really great that you're here. Now is the time that we start to recognize our 2025 Valley Treasures. So each year, a review committee, we have a whole process on this, a review committee that includes Alliance board members, staff, and community representatives, comes together after a nomination process and has several meetings and votes, and decides on this year's Valley Treasure. And I will mention here that the Valley Treasure Award is made possible by anonymous donors, and we're really grateful for that family that makes this possible, because it's a wonderful thing to be able to do. So at this point, unfortunately, Barb Melby is sick, but wonderfully, her husband, Tom, I don't see Tom. Oh, you're way back in the back. Tom, it's time for you to come up. So Tom Melby, who is a Mauzy neighbor of Tim and Dee Dee and a dear friend, is going to share a few words about their story and contributions. Thank you, Tom. Yep. Excuse me. I would like to introduce a new VIP. A new VIP, Tom Melby.
Yeah, I feel kind of like a backup quarterback who has no practice, has no idea what he's doing, and filling in for Barbara, who would have had much better, probably twice as good, her remarks. But the good news for all of you is that I will take half as long as Barbara. So I'm going to use some of her notes. Barb grew up outside of Dayton, and we married, and we stayed in California for the first 30 years of our marriage. Dee Dee and Barb went to Turner Ashby High, and Barb was a little bit older than Dee Dee, so they didn't know each other well there. After returning to the Valley, after the first 33 years of our marriage, we came back in the year 2000, and we took up residence in greater metropolitan Mauzy. We live on Indian Trail Road on Smith Creek, and right across the creek are Tim and Dee Dee. There they are. And so anyway, I'm going to read this. We hadn't even unpacked our boxes when we had moved in. One night we heard a knock on the door, and there, lo and behold, was Tim and Dee Dee. And we opened the door to this greeting. Hi, I'm Dee Dee Sellers, and this is Tim. Here's a bottle of wine. I went to Turner Ashby with you. Welcome to the neighborhood. We've got problems. So I was ready to get my suitcase and leave. Well, the problem was the Holtzman Travel Center, which was already addressed. We fought very hard against that because we really earnestly wanted to keep Mauzy pastoral, historic Mauzy, but we lost it. But the good news, it was the beginning of over 20 years of Tim and Dee Dee leading the charge to keep exit 257 interchange free of further development and to preserve the area's rural character. They really formulated what we now call the much feared Mauzy gang. Through all their encouragement and persistence, and some might say prodding, they got a lot of folks together and kept driving, and the Mauzy gang grew and grew. We attended board of supervisor meetings, planning commission meetings, wrote letters, made calls, and attended court proceedings. Tim even, well, both of them kind of got this AG forestal district going, and that continues to grow. As a matter of fact, just as an aside, I think now some of the board of supervisors, when they see us coming, kind of turn and start running. Tim and Dee Dee's motto was show up and be seen. And that's what they encourage us to do. The Mauzy gang, which I said is now quite known in the area, is a force to deal with thanks to Tim and Dee Dee. I'm sure I'm joined by all the Mauzy gang in being thrilled that the Alliance has selected them for this award. Their efforts as leaders have prevented, most recently, a 31-acre truck stop right up here, which wouldn't have been good. Tim even led the charge to change the BZ zoning ordinance to require public water and sewer for most commercial development. So let's hear it for Tim and Dee Dee. Thank you.
Tim and Dee Dee, will y'all come up to the front? You've tucked yourselves back in the back. Please come up and show your faces.
They're in the witness protection.
Thank you.
So we're gonna do a photo thing. This is the Your Valley Treasure Award, 2025 Valley Treasure Award to Dee Dee and Murray. And should we just do a photo here? Or we can do it after the program. We can get. We have to do photos. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
I heard about this. I told my husband, I said, at my age, it's really unusual to be recognized as a treasure. Really, really proud and very honored that you folks have bestowed this honor on us. It's been a journey in Mauzy, and we're still trying to do what we can to help preserve the agriculture and the open spaces here. It's very important. And we try to interact with other people in the county and try to form other ag forestal districts. We've been approached by some people, and we hope that we can continue that. And we hope that we can encourage young people, just like Matt was talking about. We need to encourage young people to take on the task here. It's very, very important. But again, thank you for this honor. And we're just really thrilled. Thank you.
Just to reiterate Dee Dee's thanks for all your help and recognition in the work that we tried to do. And I really want to recognize all the people that have supported us in our efforts to preserve the agricultural landscape and everything we do to try and keep that going. I would like to mention that as far as that 31-acre truck stop goes, we wouldn't have gotten any idea of what to do without Kathy Hunter's husband, who just recently passed. He's the one who notified us or let us know about the upcoming truck stop. And once we heard that, all we could do was just try to start talking to people and get as many people involved as we could. So again, thank you to all of you who have supported us throughout the battle, and we'll just keep up the fight. Thank you again.
Thank you.
In addition to celebrating Valley treasures, we also honor those who are no longer with us, but whose work continues to guide us. The North Star Award recognizes these individuals whose legacy lights the way forward. To present this year's North Star honor to the late Juanita Burtner, I'd like to welcome Alliance board member Bob Threewitz. He is a wonderful contributor to our work at the Alliance and a friend of Juanita Burtner and her family. Thank you, Bob.
Well, thank you for the privilege. Juanita was one of the first people that was involved with the Harrisonburg Farmers Market. And we had three folks in Keezletown. One of them is still going on with Hickory Hill Blueberry Farm that still are involved. And Juanita was there, and Clarence Dellinger, and he was the old salt who drove the rattiest pickup you could find that we'd all love to have now, and beard down to here. And you know, it was a trial and error. They went to the underground of the parking deck, and people tried to find them and found them, and they kept things going. I'm not a native of the valley. I've only been here 52 years. So, but my wife grew up in Keezletown, and the remarks I'll make are personal with Juanita. We were married in 77, in October of 77, and bought a farm and moved in the house in early 78. You couldn't do that now. Our house was right across the driveway from the Burtner farm. So we were mailbox friends. Our children were, I think I'm right, and y'all can help me with this. Mike is the youngest, and I think Mike is 4 years older than our eldest. So they weren't classmates, but if it was raining, they might come to our porch to stay out of the rain till the school bus came to deliver them to Keezletown, and then Montevideo, and then Spotswood. So we knew the Burtners well. Obviously, we were there for almost 20 years at that location. And ate a Ruritan meal with Lowell once a month, and with Juanita was a Nezelrod, so that's a popular name in Keezletown. So she was intertwined in the community, and just like Mauzy, we think of Keezletown as, you know, this is our community, and Juanita was always there. I, like Matt, was on the board, Farm Bureau board with Juanita. Susan was on the women's committee with Juanita. And if those that maybe don't read the Harrisonburg paper and seen all the invites to this, Juanita was the first lady who was an official board member of the Rockingham Farm Bureau Association. When CAP came about, because we did not want to bypass coming through Keezletown, that bypass was spun as a scenic highway. It'll just be pleasant for you. It was going to be a 4-lane divided highway. It wasn't much pleasant about it. And it would have probably been right through, it would almost have had to have gone right through the Burtner farm, which would have just, you hate to say it would have been the end, but I don't know how you could live next to it. Juanita was there, one of the pillars that was there leading the fight with Kim. And the thing about Juanita at our board meeting, she was very informed, and she never pounded the desk and said, let's do this, but it was always, what do you think about this? Or what if we did it this way? And it wasn't always maybe the exact way it would be done, but it was always a thought-provoking thing that she would pleasantly and easily put in your mind. That, what about this? She was the hat lady. She was the flower lady. She was just one of that community. What'd you say?
Cake lady.
Okay, yeah, that's true. That's true. See, Susan has been right there with the rest of the family for a couple of years. I won't say how many. I made some real notes here, and I think I've covered all. We all hope that there's community members like Tim and Dee Dee, but like Juanita, that do it in such an easy manner and make it easy for you to have that conversation. She would always be sitting kind of in the corner, but it was always that voice that would say, what do you think about this? What do you think if we did it this way? And it was nice when we lived there, and even when I didn't, to see that car coming up to the mailbox and getting to holler at Juanita and, you know, spend a little time with her. She was a blessing to our community. One thing I want to mention, and I got approval of it from Kirby Dean, and Kim and Susan and I met with Kirby Dean, who is he's the director of Parks and Rec for Rockingham County and manages the Crossroads Park Recreation Center. And Kirby's a Keezletown resident. And so with the help of the Alliance and the Farm Bureau, we thought, in recognition of Juanita, that on that park, there will be put a bench there. And when we went to talk to Kirby, and I talked to him prior to it, and he told us what it would take monetarily to put a bench in a park, I was astounded. I wasn't quite ready for it, but yet I understood where he was coming from, because we wanted to look like in 10 years from now what it looks like today. And it was designed and built for that. And anymore, you can't get the concrete truck in anywhere. You've got to have a custom, a contractor come in and pour your slab. And our thoughts were we'd have it on the walking trail, and it would be surrounded by flowers, which the park staff can take care of that. Hopefully a couple of trees planted, which, 10 years from now will offer a little bit of shade. But I think it put the idea in Kirby's mind that we'll do this maybe as time goes on and other people would be recognized in this way. We'll do this in maybe 4 or 5 locations around the trail. And hopefully it's a bench that's welcoming, and I'm sure it will be. So the Alliance was good enough to make a donation. The Rockingham Farm Bureau Association is making a donation, and Susan is making a donation. So I hope that really that will be something that will occur in the next 3 months. And Kim, we need to walk the trail one day and pick out the spot. There's one little slice of land that is between the park and the Burtner's farm. So literally, kind of like Matt, you can see where it is. And we figured we'd put it facing north, so be keeping an eye on everybody, Virginia. And but we're glad that all came to fruition. And so go to the park, walk the trail, and hopefully next spring you'll see a bench in Juanita's honor. There are several family members here, so yeah, everybody that's a family member of Juanita, it'd be great to. Chaz, it will even allow you. Here's the official designation as a North Star Award to all the Burtner family. And there were five children. Juanita had 5 children. Unfortunately, Bill, the eldest, passed away. But two boys and 2 girls. So glad to see my neighbors again. Don't get to see you very often.
Yeah.
She moved away from Keezletown. So anyway, thank you for your mother.
You know how some people are Baptist, some people are Presbyterian, Episcopalian, whatever. Mother was a farmer. It was her religious calling. It was her calling. And when Mother passed away, we were very busy, and Madeline was very busy, as well as my daughter, Juanita's granddaughter, Madeline. And she's the writer in the family. And we said, well, Madeline, I know you're busy, but could you please write the obituary? Because I'm not a writer. I don't think I can do it. And she said, sure, just write down the notes. Give me the notes. I'll write something. And I had written something like, Juanita was proud of her rural heritage. And when Madeline gave me the finished copy that she was ready to turn into the newspaper, she had changed that line to, Juanita held her rural heritage to high glory. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. But that so aptly described Mother and how deeply she was concerned about conservation and the community. And she wasn't happy unless she was planting something, and it didn't matter if it was flowers for the farmer's market or taking care of cattle or planting a pollinator garden for caterpillars. I mean, she wasn't happy unless she was planting or growing something. And I just think this is a wonderful tribute to her. So thank you all very much. Well, you know, Mom did a lot of things, and mostly all good, but she would really be, I think, surprised to receive an award for them, because I don't think she never had any aspirations for getting an award for anything that she would do. She just did things because she felt like it was the right thing to do. And she always put others ahead of her too. You know, she didn't do things for herself. She did things for the benefit of the community, her neighbors, and that sort of thing. So it's really a nice, very nice honor for her to have. So I want to thank everyone for that.
Stand up and thank my kids and vote. Celebrate.
My name's Kim Sandum, and I've had the pleasure of knowing and working with all of our honorees today, and actually all of our speakers too. I have been involved in conservation work in the Rockingham County area since 2000, and it started with the Burtner family and Cap and Bob and all the Keezletown community working to prevent a destructive road project and do something better. In a fit of madness, I ran for office once in my life, and as you might imagine, it was a shoestring budget, and I remember Juanita making her own Vote for Kim Sandum button from a brochure that I had, and she wore it all over town. So that's the kind of person she was. If she supported something, she really supported it wholeheartedly. And I love that most of the speakers, maybe even all, have mentioned community, because that's the very best part of this work, is meeting the people and stitching together community and strengthening the community. So I also, Tim and Dee Dee, I'm a bit of a newspaper pack rat, and I clip articles. And so when it was time to prepare for this event, I dug out my Mauzy folder, and in there is an article of 20 years younger Dee Dee picture that we passed around to the office to the young staff members, and dated 2002. And so I remember that the truck stop fight very well, and found it very ironic that another one came back. And it just shows the need for committed community members to continue to be vigilant, to protect and care for the communities that we love. So thank you all for being here. I'm just so pleased to have worked with these wonderful people, and it's been a real honor to know and have worked with them.
Well, if anybody's not crying, good for you. This concludes our program. I heard the Bluegrass Band warming up, and they sound really good. Want to thank the JMU hospitality students, are the ones that have helped the Alliance staff put this together, and local caterer Jillian. And so I think they're going to be really good hors d'oeuvres, Mauzy themed mocktails by the JMU students in Bluegrass. So thank you so much for being here. It's just a great chance to see people and talk and celebrate community and conservation. So thank you so much.